Hi, this is Paul from Pear Tree Education. Today's video is the second of a three-part video series about project-based learning. The second part is about strategies to overcome the challenges of implementing project-based learning, specifically the 8 challenges addressed in my previous video. These include the changing role of teachers and students, increased management skills, inadequate training and support, risk-taking and learning from making mistakes, collaboration, confidence with diverse tools and resources, time, and assessment changes. It should be evident from looking at this list that these challenges are interconnected. Ideally, all teachers will naturally gravitate towards 21st century education approaches to teaching. I, for instance, created my own philosophy on 21st century education, which you can see in my video, What is 21st Century Education?, just purely through personal teaching, business, and life experience. I had no problem then learning about these concepts as I was already inclined to think that way. However, I would think that at least 60% of teachers don't think that way. Most will fall into the category of what I mentioned in my last video about suffering from the need to feel like educational experts that must teach, must be at the front of the class, and must control every aspect of the class. Such teachers are extremely resistant to change, any change. Want to introduce technology into your school? These teachers will refuse to use it, or will do nothing but complain about it. They will argue that it's inferior, pointless, a waste of money, and so on. We can't ignore these teachers. They need to share our educational goals for our students, even if they're starting off from very different places. They need to be immersed into an existing project-based learning classroom. In other words, they need to have the chance to learn from experienced and successful project-based learning teachers. They need to become aware of the nature of context. There isn't such a thing as the method of project-based learning. Every teacher will take their own approach, which is not only idiosyncratic, but also due to the teacher teaching around context, their learners, the local culture, the physical environment, and the tools and resources they have available. Prescribed lesson plans do not work in project-based learning. They need to become expert learners. They need to become passionate about ethics of care. I'll need to make another video to do more justice to this very important topic. Ethics of care is about the importance of teachers truly caring about each and every student, no matter what they're like in or out of the classroom. More importantly, it's about the students acknowledging that they feel cared about and showing that they feel welcome members of your school's community. Such students will then become receptive to education and more passionate learners. While many educators think that knowledge and technical expertise are the most important aspects to being an educator, without ethics of care, any educational method an educator will be ineffective. They need to be trained on how to start a project-based learning classroom from scratch. They're unlikely to walk into an existing project-based learning class or school, so they need strategies on how to do this, which is something I'll address later in this video. They'll need to learn how to foster cognitive apprenticeships. You are training students more on how to think and less about what to think. They need extensive ongoing training and support. No one-day Pro-D day is going to overcome the challenges of implementing project-based learning, let alone with teacher-centered educators. They also need ongoing training in tools and resources, and not just in technology either. They need time. Time to evolve as educators, time to prepare classes, time to work on extended projects. They need collaboration with peers. None of us know everything that we need to know for every project-based learning scenario. Challenges will range from academic ones, to problems with tools and resources, to socio-emotional challenges of project-based learning, particularly those faced by our students. We need to work together as educators to help each other overcome such challenges and evolve together. School leaders need to model collaboration and risk-taking. They need new forms of assessment, ones which support, not undermine their efforts and those of their students. Ultimately though, the time and likelihood of success stems down to how far away the teacher is from where they need to be. If they're so entrenched in teacher-centered approaches that they won't even take training seriously, then it may not be worth working with such teachers. An effective method of implementing project-based learning is through small changes. If you're working in a traditional environment, don't expect to change to project-based learning overnight. It'll almost certainly fail miserably. Sure, you could do some kind of Makerspace activity, but it won't really have any real-life meaning. It'll be pretty superficial. You need to foster all of the different facets of project-based learning. You need to begin equipping your students with the skills that they need for project-based learning. Firstly, they need to develop academic skills, study skills, executive functioning skills, and self-reflection skills, all coming under the umbrella of cognitive and metacognitive skills. They need to develop higher level thinking skills that are far more sophisticated than those required to memorize facts for tests, including problem solving and critical thinking skills. Just like the teachers, the students also need to develop a wide range of skills for tools and resources, including technology. They need to develop socio-emotional and people skills. These include self-awareness, self-regulation, including emotional regulation, accountability, decision-making skills, risk-taking abilities, the ability to learn from making mistakes, empathy and respect for others, collaborative skills, communication skills, being likable and having an attractive personality. All of these skills need to be introduced in different amounts and at different levels depending on your learners. You'll likely need to use a lot of teacher modeling, so mini projects will be very structured with specific learning goals, academic and socio-emotional, with specific tools and resources. The key beyond equipping educators and students with the necessary skills is to mix things up. Don't fall into the trap of taking a prescriptive approach, because neither you nor your students will progress. Just because your class is learning how to do project-based learning, don't always try to control everything and don't always do small guided activities. Give your students some freedom, but be aware that students will likely fail, and that's okay. You want them to learn from failure. Be ready to deal with that failure though. Be ready to teach them how to learn from making mistakes. As your students develop those skills, make sure that you become less involved. The level of your involvement as an educator will depend on the context. If you expect your students to be able to do something, then let them do it. If you know that they won't be able to do something without support, then offer them the necessary level of support. Try to work within your students' zones of proximal development, because that's where the learning takes place. Don't give them ridiculously difficult challenges that they'll never ever solve, not without you doing everything for them, because they won't learn anything. Likewise, don't give them easy challenges, because again, they won't learn anything. Work within an area that challenges your students, that will cause some frustration, and that will require them to collaborate with others, but that's still possible with some support. To summarize, implementing project-based learning requires a tremendous amount of training, development, and support for teachers and students alike, covering a wide range of areas. How quickly project-based learning can be introduced into a school or classroom really depends on the context. Context determines everything. Where are your teachers and students now? How far away are they from where you want them to be? Be realistic, but be determined to bring about long-term change. Be determined to move away from teacher-centered approaches, and if necessary, get rid of teacher-centered educators who are not willing to change under any circumstances. At the end of the day, the students are the ones who matter most. We have an ethic to care for educators, but we have a greater ethic to care for our students, who have less power and less control than we do. That's about all for today's video. If you liked the video, please give me a thumbs up, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe below. Thank you.